Let's listen again for the scripture pertaining to this message. A leper came to Jesus, begging him, and kneeling before him, said, "If you choose, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him and said, "I do choose. Be made clean." Immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. After sternly warning him, he sent him away at once, saying, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded as a testimony to them." But but the man went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the word, so that Jesus could no longer go into town openly, but stayed out in the country, and people came to him from every quarter. Amen. Have you died recently? When is the last time you died? What would life look like if you died? The dictionary lists many definitions for the word die. They don't just have to mean to expire or to come to one's living end, but the definitions all do have something to do with loss, with nothingness, with some kind of low point or negative condition. If you come to a sudden and abrupt stop, that is called a dead halt. A night of deep slumber is called a dead sleep. A barren landscape is known as dead land. The period of greatest darkness during the year is called the dead of winter. When I was just becoming a regular minister in churches, I thought I was fully mature and ready for anything. But after I became an elder at my former church, I had an experience that knocked me on the side of the head, but good. The pastor was on sabbatical, and in fact was preparing to present her resignation. In the meantime, Elder Ken, the vice president of the consistory, was looking for substitute ministers, teaching and overseeing the Sunday school, and giving the welcome and announcements every worship hour. But that wasn't my test. About 5 a.m. one Saturday morning, I got a call from the hospital. It was from a woman in the congregation. Her husband had been rushed in an ambulance to the emergency room. He had suffered a massive heart attack. So she needed a minister and couldn't think of anyone else. So she called me. What else could I do but throw on a set of clothes and go down there? Wanza came with me. We rushed into the emergency room. The guy had just died. With the wife sobbing her eyes out, she waved us toward a cubicle, and there on a hard table was her dead husband with glazed white eyes and gaunt cheeks. He had been taken less than 5 minutes before. So what do you do now, super substitute minister Ken? I was scared. This was no movie or reality show. I remembered to bring my Bible, and after some awkward moments, remembered the Gospel of John, chapter 14. I read the passage about Jesus preparing many rooms in his Father's house, and that one of the rooms was prepared for this woman's husband. And if I didn't know it before, I knew now that dying is a fate we cannot escape. But what if I told you that physical death may not be the scariest thing that can happen in this life? How about a life in which which you can't feel pain. A leper, a person with leprosy, cannot feel pain. How horrible. They touch boiling water without knowing it. They walk bare feet and they walk barefoot with bleeding feet. They suffer such terrible diseases by not having this one sense of touch. Jesus healed a number of lepers during his ministry. In essence, what he did was to give them back their pain. Maybe that's why the religious officials back then thought Jesus was crazy. What kind of healing is that, they thought, when you give back a person their pain? One former leper in Luke 14 even comes back to Jesus after he's healed and thanks him personally. He might have said something like, "Oh, Jesus, thank you so much for giving me back my pain." And there has to be a lesson in that somewhere. Have you ever heard the expression, "I pinch myself to see if I was still alive"? I think there's a lot of truth in that without pain and suffering, we cannot have faith and belief. Think about it for a moment. Pain and suffering lie on the road of faith. When do most people profess that they got close to God? It's when they're experiencing some kind of crisis or trouble. When we realize we have a disease, who do we call on? We don't call the Ghostbusters, we call God. When we've lost a loved one, or fail at our jobs, or have some kind of difficulty with our spouses and friends, we turn to God. Pain actually brings us closer to God. And pain actually brings us closer to our friends. The genesis of this sermon actually came from a smokestack I saw on the side of a Pennsylvania highway. And I drove past the PP&L building, the kind of power and light company where this big smokestack was billowing out tons of black smoke. And besides hoping that this was clean smoke, something struck me. I thought, without all that dark smoke and ugliness, without all of that negative impression, we wouldn't have light. We wouldn't have warmth in the wintertime. We wouldn't receive the positive. PP&L was using the decomposition of an element, coal, the death of something, the burning of coal, and turning it into something useful and productive. The Bible implies you have to go through suffering to find the good. If you are a believer, you must walk through the valley of the shadow of death to get to the mountain on the other side. Another example would be losing weight. It may be torture to shed those pounds, but what about the benefits we reap when we're able to fit into that dress or fit into those pants again? The pain becomes worth it. And how about a seed, which I talked about a few weeks ago? Jesus talks about it in Matthew and Luke. We can stare at a seed all we want, but if we do nothing, it's just going to stay dormant. But if we push that seed down into the earth, thrust it into the darkness, what happens? It sprouts. Death leads into life. I'm thinking this could even be proportional. If you go through a certain amount of pain and suffering, you'll receive its positive equivalent on the other side of the ledger. And if so, I think we're all due for a great deal of joy, considering all the pain and suffering that we go through. I think Jesus Christ demonstrates with his innocent blood that it takes going all the way to the cross to really rectify all the wrongs we've done over the course of our lives, to be right in the eyes of God. We're sinners. We know and accept that. We know that we should be in line for a lot of pain and suffering, that nothing but darkness and shame should be due to us. And the crux of the matter is, we don't have the guts to live like we ought to. We engage in some kind of risky behavior, some kind of questionable action that we know we would be better off not doing. And these sorts of daily acts that we keep doing over and over again, we know that we really deserve nothing more than banishment from God's kingdom. The Apostle Paul offers a challenge for us in Philippians 3. Paul says, you think you should be confident in your own flesh? He then lists reasons why he thought that he was the greatest. He was a good Jewish boy, circumcised on the 8th day as the custom was. He became a proud Israeli tribe mate from the tribe of Benjamin. Benjamin being one of the 12 sons of Jacob. His ethnic stock was excellent. He was a Hebrew of Hebrews, an educated lawyer, a Pharisee with boundless zeal. And he kept persecuting those damn Christians. And he keeps referring to his legalistic righteousness as being faultless. But what did Paul do? He chucked it. He threw it all away for the sake of Jesus Christ. He killed off the old Saul and turned in to the new Paul. He went from being a feared murderer to being our first Christian minister and author of much of the New Testament. Paul tells us that if we want to know the power of Christ's resurrection, we must share in the suffering of Christ. That we must become, as much as we can, like Christ. He says in 1 Corinthians, I die every day. And indeed, he went on to suffer greatly. The letter to the Philippians, as well as many of his letters, were written from prison. He's telling us that underneath our pain, inside our darkness, we may be building a faith. Now, this doesn't mean that we have to suffer an actual crucifixion. Jesus stepped into the place of the skull so that we don't have to go there ourselves. We don't have to face Golgotha. Christ suffered that part for us. But the secret seems to be that we must lose ourselves. We must kill off the old and take up the new. It means to take a hard look at ourselves, to find the courage to change what is wrong. Paul compares the quest of gaining new life as running a race. He's saying that he's running for a prize, and that prize is the higher calling of God. Maybe but what we call our faith journey. In his classic play Hamlet, William Shakespeare has the Prince Hamlet of Denmark uttering the famous words, To be or not to be? That is the question. Hamlet is questioning whether it's nobler to live and suffer or to die voluntarily, to be free of pain by committing suicide and have it done with once and for all. And the play goes on for about 32 lines in which Hamlet argues for this point of view. He says that only cowards and fools live on, while all the wise and the courageous die. They remove themselves from this world of calamity. But when it's all over, he still can't decide. And that's when he utters his famous words, to be or not to be. Friends, I urge you today to find some way to give yourself a death within life experience. Die where you need to die. Prune off the bad and the withered. Let the regrowth come. And let Jesus Christ take care of the rest. Once when I was younger, I went for a dentist appointment. I had a cavity that needed to be filled. In my typical bold fashion, I said, "Okay, doc, give me the drill, without Novocaine. I want to know what it really feels like." And after some pleading, the dentist agreed. Man, did that hurt! That was the last time I ever did that. I suffered pain, but only for the sake of that one cavity, for my own foolish sake. It wasn't anybody else that I had to worry about. But now multiply that kind of pain that Jesus suffered. The pain of death times the whole population of the world. So I ask, why not keep the cross of Jesus in front of you? Be like one of the two robbers who were hung on the cross on either side, which Luke 23 says, one of the robbers says, "We are being punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. Jesus, remember me when you come to this kingdom." Have you died recently? When is the last time you died? What would your life be like?